Welcome to FYI. I'm Barry ZeVAN, and my guest today is a fellow who is light years ahead of his actual age. His actual age is 20. No. He's a little older than that, but he is so into media almost from the beginning. His name is Tom Oszman. He's a dear friend, and thank you so much, Tom, for
Thank you, Barry.
being here.
I'm so glad we could do this today. It is the second day of summer. So
Yeah.
what better way to spend a summer day than
right.
to talk about media, right?
Now we're taping this the second day of summer. This will be seen initially 2 or 3 weeks from now,
Okay.
but it's okay. And in the winter, when people are watching
That's
this
right.
on YouTube, thanks to CCX Media, it'll warm them up to think there really was a summer this year.
Well, I want to wish my friends in Tokyo who are watching this on YouTube or over the world, Tokyo and Hong Kong and Sydney, Australia, welcome.
That's right. You are a world traveler and living the dream, as they say. But you and I got acquainted because I think you got in touch with me first. You have I don't want to say a thing. You have you have a wonderful presence on media called TC Media Now, meaning Twin Cities Media Now.
Right.
And tell us all about how that began and,
Sure.
and what's happened.
Well, here's how it began. We had, when I was young, we had one of those VCRs that looked like a big, huge tank, and we taped lots of movies and lots of TV, and we didn't know how to hit the stop button. So you roll for hours and hours and hours of footage. Now, this is what a lot of people first had their first VCR, a Scotch videotape. Scotch made a 3M here locally, and you could get 6 hours of footage. Now, when you got your movie over with, then you had 3 hours of not only of news, really bad commercials, well, bad but funny, low production commercials. And what I found that in the digital era, what was entertaining outside of looking at the movies was looking at how, what did we look at in TV? And the commercials and the news, that's really our history right there. And I first started finding news broadcasts and putting those onto a thing called, well, first I would put them onto my, I'd have them collages at the house. And friends of mine would either think it's really interesting or think, what am I watching? Why are you showing me this? This is crazy. But when YouTube came out back in the mid-2000s, I put a few of those videos out there, and I got 50,000 hits. I thought, so there's actually someone besides me who wants to see these.
Wow.
So I thought, well, I better put my own website out there. So I tried to get TC Media. That was taken. So I thought, all right, well, TC Media Now, because you're watching it now. You're watching the past right now. And what I try to do is I try to provide the same user experience someone would have had 30, 40, 50 years ago watching a full broadcast of the news with the commercials, understanding what was going on, and then if I can find local things along the way. I will not be putting commercially licensed movies online because I did not need movie studios coming after me. But I do enjoy putting a lot of news broadcasts. We have things from the 50s all the way through the 90s. I usually hit my line about 1995 was where I stopped putting things on because that's all readily available. But you'll find things that are off of 16 millimeter film. You'll find things that are on, no one knows what these things are. And this is what TV used to be recorded on, it's called a pneumatic tape, recording tape.
Yep.
And at first, I was going to garage sales and estate sales trying to find these tapes because people were throwing them away. And for every 50 tapes I'll find 2 or 3 good things sometimes. Sometimes I find good collections. And I thought, well, I need to go directly to the people. That's when we had a mutual acquaintance, and she said, I know Barry ZeVAN. I said, well, we got to talk to Barry ZeVAN. We had a delightful dinner, and you said you had some weather broadcasts. And I think that I'll take a little bit of credit that your weather broadcasts are on YouTube, on my website, and they're everywhere now.
Thank you very much. Yeah, it's so wonderful what you've created, because for those of us who are of a certain age, 912.
Right.
It really literally transports you mentally and otherwise back into
Sure.
those particular days. And I don't know how to describe the feeling that it gives you to see yourself.
People get different experiences out of it. Some people really like looking at hair and fashion. Some really want the content. They really want to know what the news events or what the events of the day were. People are weather. I don't like to call people geeks. I think it's a derogatory term, but weather enthusiasts, sports enthusiasts, and you find things, you find memories. I get a lot of contacts from people that were on the news in a little flash, like 30 seconds, many years ago, and before the VCRs were around. And because I've made a lot of good contacts and people in media, they had machines that, they had pneumatic machines before anyone else did. So they actually have footage that was not widely available, was only aired once. And I'll find people that have found themselves on my website, they never thought they'd see it again.
That's right. And luckily, I saved everything from the beginning of time.
Right.
and thanks to you, you were able to transfer it so people could see a lot of stuff from the past, including my ski shows.
Yes. Yes. And your trip to Iran, which I think is fantastic.
Yeah, we did 2 trips to Iran.
Yeah.
Yeah. Iran in those days was beautiful. I mean, it's still beautiful. Topographically, but as far as what's happening there, not so beautiful now. But in many ways, thanks to you, it illustrates to people that things were different at certain times, and that just because something is considered not so good now, doesn't mean it always was that way.
Look at the snapshot. When you were in Iran, what year were you in Iran?
Well, the 2 years I was in Iran were 1977 and 78.
So it was at the peak of Western influence in Iran.
That's right.
At that point, and it probably was. And I wasn't there. You were there.
No.
I'm assuming it was about as commercially Western as it was going to be at that point. And
oh yeah, I mean they actually had in Tehran the department stores were all the big ones, Lord and Taylor and I don't think Macy's was there, but just stores like that. And then there were 2 flourishing synagogues in Tehran. So the Shah was trying to get the country back into the 20th century, and truthfully, what we saw and what we experienced were some pretty happy people. There were some people, obviously, who were not happy with that. They wanted to get back to the theocracy, but that's what happened, of course.
That's a good example, because I think that most of the footage of the Middle East and of Iran that people have memory of, it was never a very happy place. I'm speaking purely from my point of view. You watch news footage that's on the national news, and it was always turmoil and fighting, which was, years after you left there. But that's why it's so great to be able to find those pieces of video and pieces of film that show what, that, for example, what it was like. What I find disappointing is people that don't even think their own family history is important. A lot of people took lots of videotapes when they had VHS camcorders. They used to call it the monkey with the camera, a guy that would be walking around and people would be holding their hands over their face. But people have tons and tons of tapes, and when I get donations tapes, and by the way, if you go to tcmedianow.com, you can donate your tapes, and I will write you a little donation receipt, because you might have some content that, you might have some commercials or news. People say, I didn't tape the news. No, you don't do it on purpose. You did, though, because you didn't hit stop button on your VCR and let it roll 6 hours. So no, you probably didn't tape the news, but if you taped a football game, a baseball game, a movie, you did. But also look into ways you can preserve your own history, and I'll help you with that if you want to talk to me about that. You can Tom at tcmedianow.com or go to my website, because you have slides, you have film, you have videotape. It's never been easier to be able to find a way to preserve that, and the quality is you wouldn't even know it's a quality degeneration between the film and the tape right now to digital video, and you can. For example, we all carry pocket phones. I can put all these onto my phone, and you can watch and look at thousands of photographs and films and right on your phone and share that with your family and friends.
You're kind of I'll try to describe this correctly, kind of a...
So many have.
Another version of the Smithsonian, because you really have preserved everything that people can view from the past, and all of a sudden it's right there. And I would urge anybody watching to please send Tom, or get in touch with Tom and see what you have to send him, which will also trigger some fantastic memories for hundreds of thousands of people, really. You have viewers all over the world.
I think people right now are purging their their collections. Minimalism, modernism is popular again, and plus people don't have VCRs. They're broken now, and honestly, the last 10 years VCRs were made, they were horrible. They didn't have a lot of good use in them, but you have probably 100 tapes in your basement. They have not been viewed. So why not, what do you have to lose? Put them in a box, send me an email, and let's see if we have some, maybe Barry ZeVAN is in one of these tapes.
Could be. I think you have transferred dozens of my tapes from VCRs to the 3/4 inch.
Yeah, I'm not convinced we've gone through all of them yet, by the way. So we have
no,
to keep digging through the archive. I think there's more in there.
We still do. I even have some 16 millimeter that I should give you to transfer.
Well, I'll tell you what, I have a lot of 16 millimeter, and I prioritize it. So I thought this one, from clips from the movie How to Beat the High Cost of Living interviews, I thought this was going to be great. It wasn't that great, but you find things once in a while. I'm hoping that there's a lot of film from our great city of St. Paul, Minneapolis, suburbs, because I just think there's not enough footage of it out there. And I also think that people don't appreciate things until they're gone. So there's lots of buildings that have been torn down, and people, oh, if only we would have saved it. Well, when it was there, no one paid attention to it, and no one bothered with it. Mm-hmm. This is a controversial item in this part of town, but there was a theater in Robbinsdale that was torn down. And my only concern was, well, when it was open, no one went to it. It was done as a business.
We went to it once in a while, the Terrace.
Yeah, sure, yeah.
And it was such a joy to go to that theater. And to me, it's kind of a dichotomy because there are so many buildings in the Twin Cities from the older times, very bad English here, but anyway, that have been preserved. Right. Look at Butler Square, downtown Minneapolis. Some of the other buildings, and they said, no, we're not going to tear these things down. We're going to refurbish them and keep them alive. For the Terrace, that was a strange one. That was
my take on that is that you have the opportunity now. So you have your history right now, and this is not, we're not talking buildings, we're talking memories on a slide, on a tape, on a piece of film. And you have that opportunity now, because what's going to happen is you're going to throw it away, and then you're going to say, I wish I would have saved it.
Oh, yeah.
And I don't promote hoarding. I think hoarding is not a healthy habit. However, if you saw some closets at my house, you'd think that I need to go on one of those hoarding shows. But no, what I want to be able to do is be able to preserve Twin Cities history. And I don't think right now, there's a lot of organizations right now that are doing that. And I want to think that I have a competitive advantage, the fact that I am the Getty Images spot for Twin Cities local media. I get a lot of requests for stuff I wish I had. I get some random requests, and should be looking at this camera. I'm sorry. I get requests that say, I was on the news, I think in 1983. I don't remember what date, what time. Like, well, I can't help you with that, unfortunately. Give your name. I will try to find if you have any tags in my website. But I do get requests of things I'm able to provide. People ask for interviews with certain people. I have them. People want to have some. Someone asked me recently, I was in the audience on Good Company with Eddie Albert was the guest. I pulled it up on my website, I found it. We found a shot of her in the audience. So
Eddie Albert?
We found a woman was on Good Company in the audience,
and
Eddie Albert was the guest.
I see.
They emailed me, I had it.
Well, Eddie Albert is one of those Twin Cities born personalities who was so fantastic and so successful. I interviewed him in his home in Pacific Palisades, and he actually, he kind of laughed. He said the neighbors hated him because in the front yard he was growing corn and all sorts of farm products in his front yard, and the city of Pacific Palisades allowed him to do it.
Right.
But he said the neighbors just hated him because he wrecked the landscape, and he was so. I think his real last name was Heimbach, and he went to I think Washburn High, and so did Arlene Dahl, who I got to know in the past too, who later became a fantastic MGM star. There are so many from Minnesota. On the other side of the coin, not that such a good side, as you probably know, or you definitely know, this was a haven for Dillinger and all the gangsters during, I think the police chief was named O'Connor in St. Paul. have you had any people send you archival
Not yet.
prints or anything about that era?
Not yet. My focus tends to be probably 1950s to 90s. However, I certainly wouldn't turn that down if someone had some archive information.
Yeah.
I do think that the historical societies do appreciate that. One thing that I don't think that has been appreciated in the historical society circles yet is TV. I think they still see it as lowbrow. Personally, that's what I think, and I could be wrong. But I think that right now this is seen as lowbrow, and I think that someday that'll change. Hopefully, we'll be around to see that. I want to give you a pop quiz. What kind of tape is this?
Okay.
I'm gonna hold this up.
It's a VHS, but it's another kind of VHS, and I can't remember the
Oh
name.
no, this is a Betamax. Remember Betamax?
Sure.
Betamax.
Okay.
So what was the first home recording device you had at home? Did you have a VCR? Did you have a Betamax, or did you have a?
Oh, you mean for television? Mm-hmm. Just a VCR.
Okay.
Yeah.
Now, knowing you must have taped a lot of stuff though when you first got that VCR. That had to have been a great joy for you to be able to watch those movies, or were you busy working?
Not really. I used the VCR mainly to watch programs, that were for sale on VCR.
Sure.
Yeah, no, very rarely recorded anything off the air.
Okay.
So there goes that.
Well, there goes that. I would have thought you would have recorded more weather broadcasts, but I wish you had.
No, I wish I had too now.
Yeah.
I didn't know you existed, or
Well,
you're going to exist. To exist, yeah.
That's right.
Yeah. I don't know. I think that television, as you know, I started in television 2 years before the U.S. got television.
Mm-hmm.
New York City was the only place that had television.
Mm-hmm.
There were 600 sets. And God bless you, you interviewed me about this, but sorry to reiterate, but since we're on the subject.
Why not?
So the studio was actually smaller than this studio, and it was in a building right behind Grand Central Station, the New York General Building, where eventually they did they actually did live soap operas in those studios, which they had expanded. But everybody thought this was just some kind of a fad. And when the producer of this, I was on this CBS radio show as a contestant called Give and Take. Pardon the sidebar here, but anyway, after the radio show, I won my first bicycle on the show and some luggage. And it was a coast-to-coast CBS show. We did it at the Barbizon Plaza Hotel in New York. So the producer came up to my mother and he said, "Your son has some good personality. We would like to have him on television tonight." We had never heard of television.
Right.
My mother said, "What's television?" He said, "Well, it's kind of radio with pictures." So they told us when to show up, etc. It was live. And the announcer was a guy from my hometown who I got to know very well, Bill Cullen, who later became a famous game show host,
Price is Right and other things, right?
everything.
Yep.
And Bill, a lot of people didn't know, had polio, and he could hardly walk. When Bill walked, he dragged his leg, and you never saw him walk on any television show. And God bless him, in the streets of New York when he was walking across, I saw him a couple of times when he was walking across 46th Street or whatever, he was not ashamed for the fact that he had a real problem. And he was not afraid. He had nothing to be ashamed of. It's to not hide it from anyone. So Bill was the announcer, and John Reed King was the host. John Reed King in the old days was a giant radio host. And so they had me come on, and the first thing they had me do was put a hat on. And they wanted a viewer to guess my hat size. So by golly, they got a call from the Bronx, and the first guy who called in said 6 7/8, and that was the hat size. And so later, after the show, I said, "Why is this on?" They said, "This is a test. We're the precursor to the CBS affiliate that will come soon." Soon was 2 years later, WCBS TV, but New York City, they said, had exactly 600 television sets in the entire city.
Well, I think you have 600 sets in your house, right?
No, only 550.
That's what I thought. I've been in the house before. A lot of things was a TV in every room. I thought it was being watched actually when I was there.
We have 14 sets.
Now, is that story in the book, by the way?
Yes, it is. I'm
Then
sorry. Thank you.
You gotta
That's
can't
right.
give it away for free. You gotta.
That's right. It's in the book, and I'll do the shameless plug, the full plug at the end of the show.
We have no
here.
shame anymore in this country. Come on, just let it go. I mean, I'm surprised you don't have a T-shirt with it on. No, I you know, again, my.
Pardon me for going ahead.
Oh
with it.
no, Barry, this is why I come here for the story. I come for the company, I stay for the stories. But I want people that see this, even the ones that our friends in Tokyo, to look and think if you have some tapes. Again, you may not think you tape the news, but a lot of people tape the World Series. They tape sporting events. They tape things. I don't want your HBO movies. They tape everything on HBO. I can't use those. But things that you tape off TV before the 90s or in the 90s, let me know. And I think that there's going to be a lot of memories on there. I think you'll be surprised how many things we can find. Even car commercials alone could be a whole program. If I ever have the time and money to do productions, I'll do them on car commercials because they're amazing. There's a documentary to be made on car commercials because there was that guy that used to do the Viking Chevrolet commercials here, and the guy that did Towsley Ford commercials. I don't know their names, but they were everywhere for years and years and years.
Yeah, beside the Twin Cities, I remember Johnny Carson used to make fun of the one guy in Los Angeles, and I can't even remember his name, but he was so bad, and that he was good.
But they're so bad, but you'd know their name. There's law commercials, lawyer commercials, jingles, and people remember those. And I put them on the social side. There's also TCMedia Now has a Facebook page too. It's a TCMedia Now on Facebook, and you can check out what we have on. I try to do some on this day in history. We had a couple things going on. There were some tornadoes that happened 50 years ago this week. I put those up on the TCMedia Now Facebook page. And we have a main page too, and you can type in a date, you can type in a name. If you want to see Barry do some weather, you can watch Barry do the weather, even in the 70s and the 80s. And sit back and enjoy. And maybe you want to watch for 30 seconds, maybe you want to watch for an hour. I don't cut it up too much. I like to give the full experience to people that are going to watch that. And I'm still finding stuff. I find stuff of you all the time still in big boxes. And I try to put them out there and tag you, and it's fun. I hope that people enjoy it. And if they don't, well, then they can unclick it.
Thank you so much. Yeah, you've resurrected my career.
Well,
my most memorable car commercial was, God bless him, Rudy Luther had me be his spokesperson back in the 70s. But anyway, the most memorable car guy for me was a guy named Bob Glinsky in Las Vegas, and he was from Poland originally. And God bless him, he was so simple in the sweet way. And he would always deliver his spot. Well, here's such and such a car, here's such a, and he would always sign off with, I'm Bob Glinsky, thank you. I'm Bob Glinsky, thank you. And everybody watched, and I swear the guy probably sold every car that he ever put on.
I'll tell you what, you don't need to be high tone, high quality to sell a car. And no offense to car salesmen or car pitchmen, but I go to some cities across the U.S. in my other work I do, and I like to watch a little bit of local TV. I don't watch too much because TV can be exhausting and the news can be exhausting. But I watch some, and if you go to Anchorage, Alaska, or Los Angeles, or Dallas, Texas, there's car commercials, and it's always got either the owner's up there trying to pitch them, or they found a guy that's able to do it, and they're funny and they're hokey. Or as now we have loan and sell your gold, and this will be, when I look back at this era someday, if I ever do, it'll be sell cash for your cash for gold, or it'll be home equity mortgages or reverse mortgages. That'll be the thing I'm looking at 20 years from now when I do this. But no, I hope people do enjoy the site. And again, these things are dusty and plastic, and I'm the only one that's still collecting them. I'm the only one that's still going through your dumpster to find them.
It's wonderful. You actually had put on shows at a theater in Columbia Heights. Yeah. And thanks to you, I was able to be part of a panel once. This was, about 3 or 4
years ago?
Yeah. And actually, in my opinion, that should be resurrected if you could, because people, especially today, I mean, when times for some people are pretty good, but times for a lot of people now are not so good. And just to have the joy to see that, and to actually have the people who help make it happen we had quite a night that night.
Well, I'll tell you about that. It's called Newsapalooza, and when I lived in Chicago, the radio station in Chicago, the news radio station, did something called Newsapalooza. It was a charitable event, and they had singers, they had radio personalities, and it was fantastic. And that's what I try to do in Minnesota. TC Media now is a nonprofit, so not only can you donate tapes and videos, but you can donate money. And this transferring film is not cheap. And I have lots and lots and lots of film to transfer, and I want to be able to do it for everyone and everything. I want to be able to give people preserving this for our community is my goal. So that being said, I've done some events, and I'll do some more too. I've done maybe about 3 or 4 of them. We did one at the History Center a few years ago. You were part of that, where people come and we watch some videos. I try to make some comparisons to today's world to yesterday's world. They're a lot of work, and they're fundraisers, but the actual funding was a little bit thin, and I didn't lose money on them, but they were a lot of work, and I want to do more. It's going to take a little bit extra work, and I want to be able to maybe get more people involved, and hopefully people have some checkbooks, because we got to keep nonprofits, hopefully as TC Media Now and others in town, afloat. I'm on the board of the Pavic Museum of Broadcasting too, which you remember, the Hall of Fame. And same challenges in this era. It's donation based, and it's tough to stay afloat. And a lot of us are still working other jobs to maintain our lives, in addition to doing another full-time job. And this is a full-time job sometimes, and I have to actually escape it sometimes, because I can get too caught up in it, where I realize I've spent a lot of times hours looking at the past, and I got to remember the future's here. And I like to live in the future. But I want to preserve the past. I don't want to live in the past. Oh. People on the site occasionally opine how great things were, and maybe some things were. I do think we fantasize about the past a bit. Mm-hmm. And if you look at some of these commercials, some of this news, some of this video, you think, what a carefree time we had. And you think about it, was everything as carefree as we think? I mean, we think it is, and maybe we have some other problems now. And I'm not talking about the world, I'm talking just about ourselves. Mm-hmm. But you got to live in today, because we can't, there's no time machine. Christopher Lloyd has not found a way to get a DeLorean to go backwards in time, so we gotta live today, and we will. But let's preserve the past as we go along. Let's not forget the past. Let's remember the past, but don't live in the past. Oh,
your thinking is light years, as I said at the beginning, light years ahead of your age, and not that you're 20 for sure, but you're definitely not 50.
Oh, I got that off a fortune cookie. I was at Lee and Chin before I came here. No,
well, I can't thank you enough, Tom, for everything that you've done for me, and for preserving our history, the history of television and broadcasting. Mm-hmm. And maybe you'll come back again sometime.
Oh, I think we could do that. And by the way, thank you for being so accessible. I mean, when I came to you and said, "Hey, I'm Tom, give me your tapes," now that's a little bit of, maybe a little bit softer, but I know there's people that in the industry, people that you worked with, that I did say that to, and most of the time they give them to me. So that's,
they should.
They get the trust.
Thank you so much. Shameless plug time. It's on Amazon, my book, Barry ZeVAN, My Life Among the Giants. This gentleman is one of the giants, and he's mentioned here in the book very respectfully and reverently and lovingly, a wonderful human being. And so are you. See you next time.